So tonight I'm honored to introduce my friend Daniel. For those of you that don't know Daniel, he's born and raised in Houston. He lives out of state now, though, unfortunately. But he's back tonight to give his talk on eating for strength. So if you've ever considered doing weight training and resistance training, or putting on muscle and getting stronger, that would be the focus of tonight's talk, is how to eat for strength. So I'm proud to introduce my friend Daniel, the vegan meathead.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. Everybody get some good food. I might be speaking a little slowly because all the blood is now in my stomach. I also ate a pepper tree today, so probably ate between these two meals like 200 grams of protein, which is normal, but not usually in such a small window of time. Anyway, my name is Daniel Austin. Like Christine said, I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. I don't live here anymore, but you know, you're born and raised here, you're always a Houstonian. And I wrote, last year I put out this book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead, Eating for Strength. So we're going to talk about ways to build our diet in the interest of focusing on strength training or building muscle, changing body composition. And it's okay if that's not of a direct interest to you. I do these veg fests all around the country all the time, and what happens is, it's usually mothers or grandmothers or girlfriends or wives. They come up to the table and they say, "You need to talk to my guy. You need to talk to my son. He wants to build muscle, or he thinks he's going to lose all his muscle." You know, because most people care about animals to some degree, but they don't know the how of how to eat enough protein to facilitate muscle growth or change in body composition. And so, we're going to talk about that, and a lot of this is to help us as a community talk about diet and giving advice to people who are interested in helping animals and not eating animals, because the most important thing we need to do is help them make it work for them. And so if there are people saying, you know, if you meet someone who's kind of a lunkhead and they love to lift weights, and they love dogs and cats, and they're like, yeah, but you gotta eat chicken breast, it's the only way. You gotta drink whey, it's the only way to maintain muscle. If we can tell them something more effective than you should eat rice and beans, because as we'll determine later, that's actually not very good advice for someone who's concerned about muscle mass, even though it is a complete protein. We can help people stay vegan, and that in turn helps animals. Because we've got a horrible turnover rate, let's be real, in the vegan community. It's like 9 out of 10 people who flirt with this idea or try it don't stick with it. Which means I'm looking at all you with some suspicion. But this is my 14th year vegan. And let's see. Oh, and before we go any further, I do have, on Friday I have to weigh in from USPA, United States Powerlifting, Arkansas State Powerlifting Championships. So I'm really sweating it after all the food I ate today, but if you want to follow me online, Instagram, vegan X Meathead. X is for drug-free, straight edge, which also means steroid-free. So I've done everything I've done in the last 14 years as a vegan. I've actually only been training for about 7 or 8 and competing for the last 4. It's all been without the use of any performance-enhancing drugs. Some supplementation, legal supplementation, and other than that, it's all food-based. So Vegan X Meathead or veganmeathead.com is where you can find me. But this is how I started out in 2001. There's a picture of me. You know, I came up in the hardcore punk scene here in Houston, Texas, in high school, and I started playing music, and that was actually what exposed me to animal rights ideas. My mother was vegetarian since before I was even born, but when your mother's telling you should do something, you're usually like, nah. I got into bands that were talking about animal rights, and then I thought, at the age of 15, now I can do this because now it's cool and rebellious. But as an 18-year-old young man, I was about 140-pound vegetarian. Today I'm sitting before you weigh about, well, I was 168 this morning, but after all that, I'm probably like 173 at this moment. And then I went vegan in 2005 because I finally got over the hump of the cheese addiction. And I saw some videos about veal calves being taken away from their mothers, and that's really what got me. But what happened when I went vegan was I had no concept of nutrition. I did it purely for ethical reasons. But I lost weight because I lost some muscle mass. I looked about the same, but I got a little bit skinny fat. Does anybody know that feeling? It's a problem. When people cut out a lot of the protein and fats in their diets and they go vegan, the skinny fat phenomenon happens where you lose some muscle mass, but you still basically look the same. And a lot of people find themselves unhappy with that. So again, tonight we're going to talk about ways to get people out of the skinny fat black hole. But anyway, I'm a ethical vegan, going on my 14th year, and I thank bands in the 90s for singing about animal rights, because whether I ended up being decent at powerlifting, my sport, or not, I would still be vegan. So, if I sucked, that's whatever. I do this for the animals. But fortunately, there are ways to make your diet work to train for strength and become stronger and change your body composition. But two bands that are very important, and they've probably inspired people at every single animal rights organization. We're Earth Crisis from New York and Propaganda from Canada. And I just want to share some lyrics with you. And these are the kinds of lyrics that made me so adamant about this is the way for me. Earth Crisis sings, "This is the new ethic. Animal lives are their own and must be given respect. Reject the anthropocentric falsehood that maintains the oppressive hierarchy of mankind over the animals. It's time to set them free." And Propaganda said, "You can't deny that meat is still murder, dairy is still rape, and I'm still as stupid as anyone, but I know my mistakes. I've recognized one form of oppression, now I recognize the rest. Life's too short to make others shorter." So, great bands, and they still play today, and they're all still vegan. So this is me in 2013 after a really aggressive couple years of trying to bulk and eat everything in sight so that I could become a powerlifter. And that's me singing for my band Die Young. What I learned is that when you try to bulk, people say, "How do you bulk as a vegan?" I would say, just eat a bunch of cereal and vegan mac and cheese and drink a bunch of soy milk. And that's all you have to do. Just do that as much. Just stuff your face with as many carbohydrates as possible. You'll gain weight, trust me. If you lift weights, you might turn some of it into muscle. But the trick of what my experience has been since then, because I probably weighed 180 pounds or more at this point. A couple of years later, I joined a plant-built team and was a powerlifter, but I had to whittle down my weight, maintain my strength, or even gain strength to be competitive at the weight class I'm in. I had to learn how to balance fats, macros, increase protein consumption, because those things do matter and they do make a difference. So I want to say that whatever we're talking about tonight, you hear a lot of cross-information in the vegan world these days about health, reversing disease, and just general health. Maybe sometimes endurance athletes, as we'll discuss, have a different way of eating than a strength athlete or someone who wants to build muscle. So what I'm talking about tonight is strictly about eating vegan for strength. I'm not talking about eating vegan for health. Although I do think you dodge a lot of health risks by pursuing strength on a vegan diet. But I'm going to read the disclaimer from my book, just so we're clear. The advice given here is primarily based on personal experience, is not intended to diagnose or treat any specific condition or illness. I do not do the work of nutritional science, research, or peer-reviewed data. I'm a vegan who lifts weights in my garage, and I eat more protein than most meat eaters. This is simply what has worked for me over the course of years, and it very well may not work for you at all. But hey, it's worth a shot, right? And I'm only writing this since so many people ask me for advice all the time. So try these recommendations at your own risk, and in case of any complications, please seek help from a medical or nutritional expert. But whatever you do, do not give up on veganism, because that would be some weak-ass shit. Okay? I'm here to show you that when there is a will, there is indeed a way. That's the way of the vegan Meathead. Yeah. Okay, so I talk about powerlifting. I'm going to mention that a lot. That's my specific sport, and it's actually a very simple sport. You squat, you bench, and you deadlift, and you're always testing the max amount of weight you can do for one rep. That's all it is. But like I said, I have a meet in Arkansas next week. I've been training for it for 4 months. I'm going to get 3 attempts at the squat, 3 attempts at the bench, and 3 attempts at the deadlift. And all in all, I'm going to spend less than 9 minutes on the platform. So there's no cardio involved. It's all about max strength. So I want to say, this is me from the USA Powerlifting Raw Nationals. Raw means that you're not using any kind of suits to assist the way you lift or wraps around your knees in a squat. I was the only vegan male of about 700 or 800 males. So one reason I like to talk about this subject is in the vegan world, we need people to get into strength sports and show the rest of the world what can be done. So if that's anything you have an interest in, please talk to me. I'd like to point you in the right direction because we need people to represent for the animals in strength sports. So yeah, that's my squat. That was like about 415 pounds. That was about like a 290-pound bench press. And this is, I don't know if it's going to play. Well, anyway, that's 495 pounds deadlift. And deadlift is just ripping the bar off the ground, picking it up to your waist, locking out cleanly. It's about 3 times my body weight. And next week I intend to do over 500 pounds. So if you want to follow me online, you'll be able to see whether I pull it off or not. I'm pretty confident I'm going to. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, you can watch it. I'm proud of this. This is my best lift ever. My best deadlift. That's 495 pounds. Yeah. So, and Christine, who introduced me, is also on an international vegan athletic team called Plant Built. And we have actually some other Houston team members like Natalie and George Matthews. But Plant Built is an international vegan athletic team. It's actually the largest in the world as far as we know. We have people from about 4 continents, all kinds of different backgrounds, and we have people who compete in kettlebells, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting like Christine. I'm on the powerlifting team. We have bodybuilders. So this is in our 2017 meetup where we went to the Naturally Fit Games in Austin, Texas. And we really cleaned house that year. We showed people what vegan power is all about. And the powerlifting team alone, between 8 of us, 4 guys, 4 girls, won 13 medals. All of us placed top 3 in our weight class. So people who chuckle about the vegans showing up in the morning are asking us for advice at the end of the day. Just gotta show them how it's done. All right, so now I want to make some distinctions here. We're going to talk about how looking good is not the same as performing well. Most people just want to look good. So, like when we won 13 medals on the powerlifting team, I think the whole Plant Built team, 40-some people, won like 33 medals in all the sports that we competed in, which is great. The bodybuilders did clean up, but Veg News ran an article, vegan bodybuilders won 33 medals, and the rest of us were like, we're not bodybuilders. But you know, a powerlifter like me, I'll usually carry anywhere from 12 to 15% body fat. Because a bodybuilder like Nima Delgado here, he goes through an intense fat-cutting phase at the end of his cycle to get ready to look good on stage for that one day. And in that period of time where he's cutting all that fat, he actually loses all his strength. People, when they get on the stage and look their best, it's right at the end of a long cycle where they're usually feeling their worst. What I like about strength sports, and why I say aesthetics does not equal strength, is that you feel good pretty much all the damn time. And that serotonin boost you get from getting a new PR is just awesome. So this is probably one of the strongest vegans who's ever walked the earth. This is Patrick Babumian. He won World's Strongest Man. But a lot of times people, when I show people like what a bodybuilder is versus a strong man or a powerlifter, they'll go, well, that guy's fat. I'm like, well, let's look at the strongest men in the world. Oh, well, also, before we look at the strongest men in the world, I also want to say, you know, I talk a lot about guys because strength sports is about 2/3 guys, but there's about 1/3 women in it, and I hope to see more women get involved. I think it's great if women want to pursue strength. And the advice I'm giving today about diet and things like that, and the way you balance macros and protein ratios in your diet, it's the same for women as it is for men. It's just all relative to your body weight and your lean mass. So, you know Natalie? She's a Houston-based vegan bodybuilder. She looks excellent here. I believe she won first place at the plant-built female physique category. Yeah, she is a professional bodybuilder, not just a professional vegan bodybuilder. She's respected in the general bodybuilding world. And this is my friend Rachel Lakey, who is the only woman who competed as a vegan in last year's USAPL Raw Nationals, out of about 400 women. She's up in Oregon, but you can see the differences in body type. Rachel carries more fat on her body. That's not a comment about any opinion of how she looks. It's just, if you want to pursue strength, don't be afraid to put some fat on it. A lot of times it takes up to 5 pounds of fat to make 1 pound of muscle tissue. That bulking process is necessary, that being in that anabolic caloric surplus is necessary to pursuing strength and changing your body. So these are the strongest guys in the world. Like, this is Brian Shaw from Colorado. He weighs over 400 pounds, he's about 6'8". He can deadlift over 1,000. All these guys right here can deadlift over 1,000 pounds. They all weigh over 400 pounds. So Brian Shaw from Colorado, Eddie Hall from the United Kingdom, Hafthor Bjornsson from Iceland, who's the current World's Strongest Man title holder. You know, I also say eating for strength is not eating for health, because these guys have some of the best sports nutrition people in the world advising them to eat high-fat, high-protein diets that will, in fact, because they are so meat-heavy, these guys will admit, yeah, if we don't like win this sport and get out by like 45, we're dead. We know that. So they're putting their body through a lot of stress to achieve their goal, and they recognize that strength does not equal health. And also, as you can see, I mean, these guys carry a lot more fat than bodybuilders, but you wouldn't say it to their face. So, I just want to make sure we're all clear. Looking good and being healthy is not the same thing as being strong. I think as a vegan, you can kind of do it all. Just depends on what your approach is and what your final goal is, because your goal for your fitness is going to determine how you need to eat. So let's talk about how we need to eat. Oh, well, I forgot about this one. This is Patrick Babumian, the vegan. As you can see, you know, I mean, he's like 5'8". He's an inch taller than me, I think. He weighed about, I think, 280 pounds when he carried. This was over 1,200 pounds. They carried on his back for 10 meters. Set a world record a handful of years ago. But it took getting really thick to be able to do that. Okay, so now, how do we need to eat for strength? How much protein should we eat? How many people know how much protein you actually are supposed to eat? Oh, Christine, of course you know. Anybody?
Is it 0.8 to 1.0 grams per kilogram of body weight?
That would be more like if you're an endurance athlete. Okay. So these recommendations that I have here, and I put a bald eagle on there because Americans love protein. But this first bar on the left, the shortest one, is just for general health. So if you're just going to sit at a desk and then come home and watch Netflix, take 0.36, multiply it by your body weight in pounds, and you'll get a healthy recommendation for how much protein you should eat every day just to breathe and exist and watch Netflix. And I won't be offended if you want to take your phones out and actually figure out this calculation for yourself right now. These are statistics I got from the National Institute of Health. I've seen them reshared by Dr. Bernard, the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine. And that is a general health guideline. It's actually a very low amount of protein. For me, at about 165 pounds, that's only roughly 60 pounds a day, 60 grams of protein a day to maintain whatever basic mass and general health that I am currently at. But the numbers go up if you have different goals and you're placing different or more extreme demands on your body. Now, for endurance sports, athletes, for fighters, for swimmers, triathletes, cyclists, the required amount of protein almost doubles. In some cases it does. And there's a range. I would say 0.65 to 0.8 times your body weight in pounds. And some examples of people who would eat in this range would be like Rich Roll, Mac Danzig, who used to be a UFC champion, a vegan. He said he would eat like 80-something grams of protein a day. Brendan Brazier, who champion ultra-marathoner who founded Vega Supplements. Actually, he even though he sells protein for a living, or has, I think he sold his share out of the company, but I've seen him say he eats as low as 60 grams a day sometimes, but he's a very tall, skinny guy. So the more your training is focused on endurance and long distance kind of performance, the less you need to focus on protein. You will need more than if you're just going to sit around watching Netflix, but it's not nearly as much as a strength athlete. And that's the final category I have here, where you can see this third bar is bodybuilders, strongmen, Olympic weightlifters, powerlifters. It's about 3 times the average person. And I know that we have, because we've probably all seen Forks Over Knives or What the Health, and a lot of times the doctors, and I'm not begrudging them, they've done great work to help a lot of people, but they're usually focusing on people who are trying to reverse health problems from years of eating animal products and eating simple carbohydrates and eating greasy foods that have caused them problems in their 50s and 60s. But with athletic people in better health who want to pursue more muscle mass, increase their 1 rep max in the gym, you need to be eating at least your body weight in pounds per gram, as grams of protein per day. So for me that would be 165, but I choose to overshoot that. I play it safe. Does that seem alarming to anybody? So a lot of times I tell people, like I was in Nashville at the Veg Fest last week, and a young woman came up to me and said she wanted to go vegan for sustainability reasons. And she liked to do CrossFit, but she's been vegan for about 3 weeks and she's already not feeling that she has enough energy to perform and then recover from her workouts like she did just a month ago. And she said that the crazy paleo people in the CrossFit gym were telling her to eat 150 grams of protein a day. And I said, well, how much do you weigh? And she goes, 150 pounds? I was like, well, they're right. She was like, what? A lot of people can't believe how much you need, but this is scientifically proven. It's published by a lot of institutes of health. This one's from the National Institute of Health. So the fact is, if that's your goal, you just got to do what you got to do. Don't worry about natural. Don't worry about processed. Do what it takes to meet the goal. Okay? All right. So what are optimal protein sources then? Because like I was saying earlier, a lot of us think rice and beans. We've heard that it has a complete essential amino acid chain, and so it's got the same amino acid chain as steak and eggs. Yes, but it's attached to more than 3 times the amount of carbs. So predominantly, it's made of carbohydrates, not protein. So when people are eating those foods, that might be good for a runner or someone who needs a lessened amount of protein. But if you are focusing on building muscle, you need more concentrated sources of protein. And I would say rice and beans ranks at the bottom of the list. At the top of the list, it would be very unnatural foods. I mean, I wouldn't say get all your protein from supplementation, but apply supplementation as you need it. I usually do about 3 shakes a day to reach my protein goals. 2 of those I might make into a smoothie with other things in them, like spinach and tofu and fruit and things like that to get vitamins and minerals. But on my chart here, you can see that the top protein powders out there are about 70+% protein per calorie. Whereas at the bottom, black beans are only 26%. It's a big difference. Now, when you go down the list, the next most protein-dense category of foods are fake meats. A lot of people are a little paranoid about eating soy and wheat, foods that aren't in their natural state, but the fact is, for us as vegans, to get the kind of protein density that's in animal-based foods, we have to eat processed foods. It's just going to be a lot more pooping and a lot more fiber if we're relying only on natural foods. And there's only so much you might be able to take of that. I know this from personal experience. All right. So, you know, some of my favorite fake meats, I love Beyond Meat, although I heard that the chicken strips are getting discontinued. Anybody hear about that?
Oh, right.
I'll just have a moment of silence. I eat half a bag of Beyond Meat chicken every morning when I'm at home. Cooked in coconut oil and dipped in goddess dressing. That's my breakfast every day. But that's what works. But I did hear that Morningstar Farms is going fully vegan, and their pulled pork and a lot of their products that are already vegan are actually, some of them are higher in protein density than even Beyond Meat, which is amazing. But you know, Field Roast, Gardein, Tofurky, those are all great brands. I would say that the only ones to watch out for are the breaded stuff and the stuff in sugary sauces. You know, that's when you're adding the carbohydrates. I know it tastes good, but when you're focusing on protein, or if you're talking to a bro who's focusing on protein, steer them away from the breaded stuff. It'll help in the long run. So then at the bottom of the list, you know, people always say, well, quinoa's got protein. Yes, it's got complete protein, but it's 5 times the amount of carbs to protein. So it's really a carbohydrate source. It's barely better than rice. And then at the bottom of the list here, I've got a real bone to pick with jackfruit. Look, no diss if you like eating jackfruit, but I'm always upset when I see it taking the place of meat in a taco or a burger or something, because it's more than 10 times the amount of carbs than protein. There's almost no protein in it at all. So, you know, eat what you want for taste, whatever, but when people are substituting jackfruit for an actual protein source, even though it was an animal-based protein source, in the long run, we're going to find people who are like, why the hell is this diet not working for me and my fitness goals? So if your goal is strength, I would say make jackfruit a fruit again, not a protein source. And one other thing I want to say is, you know, so this all sounds probably to people who are more health-oriented in their approach to diet. Sounds kind of scary process, like we're going to start growing goiters and tumors because we're eating processed foods, and those are scary things. But I'm not saying to neglect eating vegetables, especially green vegetables. I eat them almost every meal. Vegetables, they're not a good source of calories, but they are the primary source of vitamins and minerals and fiber, which you do need. Not too much of it if you want to absorb proteins or amino acids. But green vegetables, they're great for vitamins and minerals, and you should be eating those every day, absolutely. I was at the Rice Veg Fest, which was awesome, by the way, and I heard one of the speakers, a small lady, talking about how to get protein, you could just eat spinach. Now, I don't know if y'all, you know those boxes of spinach you can buy, like pre-washed? Like a whole box is 80 calories. So even though spinach is 40% protein, that is true. you're getting like 8 grams of protein in a whole box. It's nothing. Spinach is a source of vitamins and minerals. It's not a source of protein. Vegetables are not a source of protein. They accompany our proteins if we're training for strength. They are a source of vitamins and minerals. And I just ask that we don't be scared of plant-based protein because, I don't know, T. Colin Campbell was even on the Dr. Oz show a number of years ago, and he was talking about turning off like cancer cells in his experimentation on rats back in the day. But they tested plant proteins on the rats. And they said that even in excess of 20% calories, plant-based protein did not turn on cancer cells nor affect their growth. And he said on international television, to this day, we don't think there's any correlation with increase of disease based on plant-based protein consumption. And then on Dr. Greger's site, nutritionfacts.org, did a study about even consuming high rates of soy protein isolates, which is like the most demonic of all proteins, right? Everyone's scared of soy. I think soy is a superfood. I eat a ton of it every day. Hasn't made me grow man boobs, so I'm only benching like 300, But this is a study where they're showing the stress on the kidneys, the inflammation in the kidneys, based on protein consumption, and even at higher rates of soy protein consumption, the kidneys more or less function the same. Animal-based protein, you can see it spikes there. So, coming from some of the leaders in the plant-based movement, they don't like to come out and say, yeah, eat as much protein as you want, because it seems to kind of conflict with their other reversing disease health narrative, and it's confusing for people. But if you want to eat for strength, I'm just saying don't be scared of excess protein. And don't be scared of fat either. Don't be a fatophobe. Fat is the most efficient source of fuel. It's got more than double the calories of carbohydrates. And it's not attached to fiber, which if you eat a lot of fiber, you're going to feel really full. You'll feel sluggish. You'll also lose some ability to digest and break down the amino acids passing through your system because the fibers kind of push everything out the back door a lot quicker. And so fat is a good way to kind of negate that fiber dilemma if you need to absorb more protein to rebuild tissue that you tore down through heavy weight training. And it's also a source of energy that doesn't elevate blood sugar. So, eating the right balance of fat is going to help you have better insulin sensitivity most of the time. Then also, another thing that we don't think about is our energy levels in relation to fat. How many people have experienced this as going vegan or know somebody who went vegan, and they're saying, I do know that some people go vegan and they experience this burst of energy because their body's not tied up digesting all these things before they didn't. It was really hard for them to digest. But some people have the opposite effect where they say, actually, I'm really tired. Anybody experience that? Okay. I have had a lot of people come up to me and say that. And what happens is, I think about how I was addicted to cheese in those 7 years that I was a vegetarian before I went vegan. And when I went vegan, the skinny fat thing happened. I lost some muscle mass, and I then carried more body fat in its place. Well, as bad for you as cheese is, it's still very high in protein, and it's still very high in fat, which as a young man I was probably using as a source of energy. And I was probably using those amino acids to hold on to muscle mass, just without even really trying at that age. But anyhow, when you say, for example, take the cheese off the pizza, and then back in 2005 when I was vegan, we didn't have any good vegan cheese, but even these days, most vegan cheese is just pure starch, so it's not really helping you in any kind of nutritional way anyway. I think if you're going to eat vegan cheese these days, it's just for fun. Don't do it all the time. It has no nutritional value most of the time. But you're losing all those calories because there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate and 9 per gram of fat. So if you think about what could be happening when you're eating a vegan pizza with no cheese on it versus a pizza that had cheese on it, some people, I mean, if you're younger and healthy and you're using that as energy, you didn't know how easy it was to transfer that into energy. But for other people, they don't have those calories anymore and they feel weak. Because at the base of all this, performance is based on caloric intake. If you're at a caloric deficit, that's the only time you would risk being in a protein deficit. So, and a lot of people we get tired of chewing. You don't chew so much, you know? So fat is something like you cook with a little oil. I know a lot of doctors say don't use the oil. But if you're low on energy, coconut oil or olive oil would be a great source of energy that you don't have to really try much harder to get those calories in. Not only that, I've had friends come back after being vegan for a few months and said they went to the doctor, and the doctor was scared because their cholesterol was so low. And people don't realize the relationship that cholesterol plays in creating testosterone. And if you're interested in performance, output, creating muscle, testosterone is key. Whether you're a man or woman, you need to have an optimal amount to be able to do your thing, no matter what body type you have. So, I mean, that's a primary component. And for us as vegans, we're not eating dietary cholesterol, but fat consumption does play a role in optimizing hormone levels. So if you feel low energy and you've been eating a super healthy, kind of almost orthodox healthy diet, I'd say start experimenting with more fat and see how your energy levels and your mood changes. I've been eating over 100 grams of fat per day for the past 5 years. Like the meal plan I give you in this book is like hour per hour, calorie per calorie, gram of protein per gram of protein of what I've done for the past 5 years. As I've said, I've been competing for 4 years, and I have improved my total as a powerlifter by almost 200 pounds at the same body weight. So my muscle density and my efficiency of using my muscles has gotten so much better without even gaining weight. But I think a lot of it has to do with high protein and high fat. And what I was saying about fiber, of course, fiber is necessary, and it is really vital to finding a healthy balance. It promotes longevity, promotes healthy gut flora, improves your digestion, helps you stay regular. But as vegans, I think we can be at high risk for becoming too regular, especially if you're eating a high-calorie diet, which is then incorporating more fiber than before. And you know, it also promotes insulin sensitivity, which helps you process like carbohydrates and store glucose properly. But the disadvantages we have as vegans is that even in our protein sources, there's fiber. I feel like being a vegan is just about a fail-safe for getting enough fiber. I mean, an American male is recommended to eat 25 grams a day. I try to cut down on the amount of fiber I eat, but I'm still eating usually at least that in my meal plan. Eating high fat and high protein at the same time. And like I said before, it can cause you to feel full and sluggish because you can't digest it. So until it passes through, you're going to feel heavy. And if you've eaten a lot of fiber, it's not a good time to then work out. That's why I would recommend using fat as a fuel source or simple carbohydrates. And then for some people, you know, as much as fiber can help promote like regular digestion, some people actually get gassy or have aggravated IBS symptoms. When you experiment with the amount of fiber and fat and carbohydrates that you're going to eat, just see what your balance is. You know, for me, I found that I needed to dial it down. And that's because it's recommended by a lot of dietitians that vegans in general should eat 10 to 16% more protein than omnivores because we lose our ability to absorb amino acids because of the fiber and the high fiber content of our diets. So even though, like I was saying, it's very vital to our long-term health, too much can work against strength goals. So All right, I've got one last little section of my talk here, and we can do some question and answers. But through the years of strength training I've done, I found that there is definitely supplementation that is helpful. Some of it is mandatory. Everybody in here take B12? I only see about 10 hands. Okay. Now, B12 we can't get from any plants. It's not going to happen. It regulates central nervous health and your mood, hormone levels. I will even say, as a weightlifter, I mean, there's a factor of conditioning your brain to be able to handle heavier weight loads, but there's also that bacterial vitamin need, which is B12. Like, for example, I was about 150 pounds when I first pulled 300 pounds off the ground. But when I did that, I was seeing stars. It was the max my brain could handle. Now, I'm doing what I showed you earlier, pulling almost 500 pounds, but I don't see stars. Part of that, beyond the conditioning of gradually increasing weights and acclimating my brain to be able to handle more weight, is proper vitamins and minerals. And B12 is probably the most essential one for your central nervous health. So if you don't take B12, whether you train or not, I mean, most Americans, it's not even a vegan problem, it's just a human problem. It's an American problem. That's why Kellogg's and all these other major corporations get subsidies from the government to put these B12 additives into their grains, into the milk, and into the juice, because the government found out a long time ago, with B12 and vitamin D, people just aren't getting enough naturally. And so vitamin D is going to help with your bone density, energy levels, hormone optimization as well. And for lifting weights, bone density is very important. Vitamin D and B12, as you know, for those of you who take it, I mean, you can get a vegan version that's about $8 to $12 at Whole Foods or Sprouts, sometimes even HEB these days here in Texas. And that'll last you 2 months, 3 months. So it's a very cheap investment, but it will absolutely make a difference in performance. Now, if you're training at all, no matter what kind of training, creatine is proven to be helpful. You can get creatine, I recommend the basic powder like GNC or Vitamin Shock, whatever. The creatine monohydrate. This is the most studied sports supplement of all time. It's over nearly 3 decades of studies. It has been proven to improve recovery and performance by 10 to 15%. And I've been on creatine since probably 2011 or so, and I definitely find that when I cycle off of it, it does make that difference. And I wonder, where the hell did my strength go? It's not something we're going to get in our diet. I think the only thing you can get it from plants is like walnuts, but you'd have to eat like a truck bed full of walnuts. So you just can't humanly do it. So I recommend getting creatine monohydrate powder. It's proven to have cognitive enhancement for even people who aren't training. It's just something we don't get in our diets that meat eaters and seafood eaters are getting. So, optional supplementation. And these are just things I've found in the course of my training that have helped me manage fatigue and inflammation through the course of beating myself up for years. And it's going to happen if you go at it hard enough, whether you're vegan or not. Because, you can get a lot of these vitamins and minerals from food, yes, but if you're putting your body through extra stress, at some point it's going to catch up with you. I recommend the amino acid glutamine, which is the most abundant amino acid in our bodies. It's primarily what our skeletons are made of. So it affects bone density and immunity. It also is shown to reduce lactic acid buildup. So when you get sore and the lactic acid builds up on your muscles, glutamine can help reduce that. Magnesium. I always talk about how a couple years ago I would just be laying in bed and I'd get a muscle spasm, a little muscle twitch. It didn't hurt or anything, but muscle twitches and spasms are symptoms of magnesium deficiency. And it wasn't that I was ever experiencing that before, it's just that I had been putting my body through so much for years and it was catching up. So, I did a little web sleuthing, and I found out that that's a symptom of magnesium deficiency. I got some magnesium. There's plenty of vegan versions, and it's not that expensive. And I definitely experience that less. Now, one reason I put essential fatty acids like omega-3 fatty acids in the optional category is I think that if money's an issue for you, this is probably the most expensive supplement because you're going to get like 30 days worth is probably going to cost you about $30. Whereas, protein supplements might cost you more than that, but I didn't even put protein supplementation on this list because we already talked about protein. That's got to be in your diet regardless if you're pursuing strength. But essential fatty acids are really essential for brain health and reducing inflammation. So that's a big part of your recovery. And we get a lot of omega-6s by eating plant-based oils and things like that, but we don't really get enough omega-3s through diet. So I recommend an algae-based omega-3 if it's in your budget. And on some level, we don't know how much each of these things actually is working for you, but you gotta know that if you're living in a state of inflammation, which for weightlifters, that's just inflammation is the name of the game, you should do everything preemptively that you can to make sure you recover and beat the meat eaters. Okay? So I think it's a good investment if you've got the money. Take care of your joints, glucosamine. Also something we don't get a lot in foods. Most glucosamine supplements that are vegan come from like shellfish. I think a lot of the ones that are vegan are more like corn-based, but I squat a lot and I bench press a lot, and I certainly get my elbows and my knees flaring up at times. And like I said, be preemptive and try to take care of your joints. Glucosamine can help with that. And lastly, I put zinc because we lose zinc in our blood every day. It's not something our body can synthesize, so we have to get it through food. Now, yes, we can get a good amount of it through like beans and whole grains and things like that. But when it comes to this fiber issue I was talking about, those foods may not always play a great role in a strength diet. So, again, a zinc supplement is pretty cheap, and like hormones, like growth hormones and testosterone, are dependent on zinc to transport them in your blood. So with low levels of zinc, you might have free testosterone that's not being used to help you achieve your goal. So make sure you're getting some zinc. It's been helpful for everybody. Anything? How you guys doing? Okay. Definitely I want to answer any questions that you may have. I really appreciate you listening. Like I said, I hope it's been helpful. I know not everybody's interested in pursuing extreme strength sports or strength in the ways that I do, but knowing how to talk about this can help other people, which can help animals long term. So let's open up for some questions. Yeah, one?
I got two questions for you.
Okay.
First, if animal products is such a magnificent source of protein that proponents of animal products claim it is, and you kind of implied that during the lecture.
Yeah, I would say that building muscle tissue on an animal-based diet is easier. They're proven there's a more anabolic kind of diet.
But if that's the case, why do because I've known plenty of jocks and who were not vegan and they supplement like crazy. They're taking piles of protein every day.
Well, that list that I put up there about supplementation, that's very modest. I've gotten this far as a vegan in both powerlifting organizations that I compete in, and with the USPA and the USAPL. I would rank in the top quartile of lifters. So if you put me up against 4 other lifters, there's usually only be maybe one that's better than me. So I'm not the best, but I'm better than most. And I did that 14 years vegan now. I started doing this when I was 32 was my first competition. That's way late in the game for a strength athlete, I wonder if I had gotten into weightlifting at 11 instead of picking up a guitar and doing the music I was talking about, that, I wonder what kind of records I would be in reach of these days. But you can get a lot done with some basic supplementation because, yes, most of the guys that I'm going up against are doing what I just listed and then some, even though they're on an animal-based diet. There's a lot of different factors between people individually. These are all things that I'm suggesting that you experiment with if this is what you want to pursue.
Okay,
And the other question.
my second question. So how would you respond to someone, because I'm sure you've gotten this before, man, I'm working 5 jobs just to take care of myself. I can't afford these recipes you recommend. How would you
How bad do you want it, you know? For me, I prioritize this above most things in my life. You know, of course, I have a day job. I pay the bills. I do a lot of this vegan outreach stuff for Vegan Meathead on the side, and I compete and lift. But powerlifting, it's nice. I can have a life. I train about an hour and a half, 4 times a week. It's only 6 hours. Most of you break your body down a lot in that hour and a half, and there's other days you need for recovery. Recovery is when you get stronger. And recovery is when diet, sleep, environmental factors play the biggest part. So, you know, it all depends on how much you want it. I mean, you've got a hobby, right? You're a photographer. How much you spend on all that stuff? Right? It's not a cheap hobby. You know? So, it all comes down to priorities. If people want to make excuses to not do it, they must not really want to do it. I drive my mother and my partner nuts when I travel. They're like, oh God, here he comes with the bag of protein powder, and we don't have room for that in the car. It's like, hey, well, this is how it is. You know, today I partied with the food. I ate a pepper tree and I ate the wonderful food that you all made. But the rest of the week, I'm gonna be meal prepping and really rationing what I do because I gotta weigh in on Friday so that I can compete on Saturday. And it's going to take precedent. You know, you can allow yourself some fun, but there comes a time when you gotta drill it down. Yep.
If you need to lose some weight, should you do your protein at the weight you are or the weight you want to be? You know what I mean, like the one for.
I would say some people would say base it on your target weight. But like I was saying about how Dr. Campbell had advised that there's actually no evidence that plant-based protein is harmful when consumed in high quantities. And the fact also that fiber is going to negate how much of that protein you can actually use. I would say overshoot. So maybe just based on whatever the weight is now. Overshoot. Don't worry about the numbers so much about weight. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, you know, if you build some muscle, you get stronger, the weight won't change, but your body composition won't change. That's really your performance and the way you feel about your body and the way it changes is what's most important. It's really, the number doesn't really matter. I mean, my weight fluctuates 3 to 5 pounds a day based on water consumption and salt and what I eat. And then, you know, I could manipulate by Friday. I could lose like 6 pounds of water weight and weigh in 62 pounds or something. You know, weight is indicative of a lot of factors. And if you're training a lot and you're living a healthy lifestyle, I would say on a plant-based diet or a vegan diet, just do as much protein as you can do because it's proven that eating over 30% of your calories in protein does improve metabolism. And my meal plan has been about 35-37% protein. And I do no cardio. So I manage all of my weight and body composition through diet alone. You know, of course, the activity of lifting weights, but, you know, most people like the bodybuilders we were talking about earlier, like Nima and Natalie and people like that, they do a lot of cardio to kind of chisel the fat off or whatever. They put in a lot of time, but I've gotten to where I'm living at what I feel is a very comfortable body fat percentage, a healthy body fat percentage, and I don't have to kill myself with cardio for an hour after I work out. And I would say if you're going to do any cardio, just if we're going down that tangent, and you're training weights, do it after the weight training, and don't do it for more than 10 minutes. Do something intense for 10 minutes and then call it. Because doing a lot of cardio, like people think running, it's going to get them in the shape. It doesn't really do anything to build muscle mass. And it will increase your cortisol levels, which will combat against your testosterone levels. So that's something to consider also. There's a lot of factors there. But just party with the protein. That's what I'm saying. It's not, if you're active, you can probably afford it, unless you have some kind of like kidney problem, you know. Yes?
You're in a band?
Yeah.
Can you sing the Propaganda song?
Oh, no. I won't. So definitely look them up and listen to them. Because I play in a hardcore like metal band, and I can't actually sing. That's why I scream. So there's apparently somewhat of a market. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you mentioning that processed vegan proteins are not vegan, because I see that as being a growing divide in the vegan movement.
Yeah.
Where
I call it health washers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. How do you think? How is there a way to meet in the middle on that? Because I feel bad seeing veggie burgers get a bad rap when it converts so many people to
Right.
veganism. And like you, I'm an ethical vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't care about my health, but what are your thoughts on?
Well, you could always go, I mean, like I was saying, in regards to protein, the natural sources, tofu, tempeh, I don't know if people consider seitan natural, but those are still concentrated forms of protein. They're not soybeans in their natural state. It's not wheat in its natural state. They're just extracted, right? And the fake meat process is just one step further than that, where they're adding seasoning and salts and stuff to mimic meat textures and meat taste, right? Of course, whatever works to keep people vegan, I would say, is most important. But
It worries me because a lot of new vegans
Yeah.
who are curious are hearing, oh no, you can't
Yeah.
do, your veggie burger, or you can't, do your Beyond Meat type of thing. That's not healthy. So,
I get my blood work done every year. I don't have it to post, but like I said, don't neglect vegetables. I don't think fruits are highly important. I think low glycemic fruits like berries are really great, and kiwis have more potassium than bananas and more vitamin C than orange. And so I kind of like limit my fruit intake a lot, but I eat a lot of green vegetables and cauliflower and spinach, broccoli, kale. Yeah, and collard greens, things like that, because they're so nutrient dense. Like I was saying, they're the best sources, natural sources of vitamins and minerals. I've found that if you eat a high protein diet as a vegan from whatever sources of protein, as long as you still have that natural fiber and those natural sources of vitamins and minerals in the mix, it has done nothing poorly for me. Now that's purely anecdotal, but most people who are pursuing strength as a vegan, like someone like Patrick Babumian, he was training for strongman competitions in which there's no weight limit. You need to be as big as you can be. So for him, like I was saying earlier, just eat a bunch of carbs and grains and soy milk. That's what he was doing. He didn't have any restrictions because he was barely taller than me and he weighed over 120 pounds more than me. That's what he got. He's so much more stronger. I compete in a sport where weight is restricted into different classes. So if I start to weigh too much, but my strength isn't reflecting that weight gain, I'm going to be less competitive. So I have found this way to like stay at the same weight and still slowly increase my strength over the course of years. But like I was saying, I get my insurance done for blood work. The only thing they flag me on two things: BMI, which is bullshit, because without seeing a picture of me, they think I'm obese, being 5'7" and 165 pounds. And I call them up and say, hey, I'm a competitive powerlifter. I don't know what you're talking about. They're like, oh, sorry, sir. And it's like my body fat is under 15%. Like, what are you, like, okay. It's kind of an exception to their rule, and I think BMI is kind of nonsense in a lot of cases. It's just a very general index. And the other thing they flagged me for is high blood urea nitrate, which is basically a waste product of protein synthesis, to build muscle. And if you carry more muscle on you, you're going to have a higher rate of that. Now, if you're somebody that isn't a weightlifter in some capacity, and you don't carry more muscle on you than the average person, an increased BUN number would be a red flag for sure. No flag on that. But given my conditioning, I mean, every high school athlete would have the same. And because that's the thing, when you read the reports on elevated BUN, it's like people who get their kids into sports and then they get the blood test back, the parents are freaking out. But that's normal for athletic people and people who are building muscle. Other than that, I have healthy cholesterol. All my vitamins and minerals are balanced. My iron is absolutely no issue in my meal plan. My iron is about 130 to 150% RDV per day, which is good because plant-based iron, the non-heme iron, is a bit harder to absorb. Also doesn't cause blood clots the same way heme iron does. So we have an advantage and a disadvantage as vegans when it comes to iron, but my iron is completely healthy level. So testosterone is right in the middle. All these things really come down to your conditioning and your goals. Eating a lot of fake meat, I think you can afford it if you live a highly active lifestyle. I mean, when I look at someone like Carl Lewis or Michael Phelps, for example, not a vegan, right? But like these world champion athletes, the amount of calories they have to eat to compete at the level that they're at is absurd. It gets to a point where it's actually only about calories. And the breakdown of the macronutrients doesn't even matter. Like Michael Phelps eats Chinese buffets like almost every day because he needs to eat 10,000 calories to win a gold medal like that. His body just burns everything up, doesn't want to care what it is, right? And then I was talking about the strongmen earlier. Like Brian Shaw eats over, I think, 12,000 calories a day to maintain over 400 pounds of body weight and deadlift 1,000 pounds and over 700 grams of protein. I mean, he's 3 of me, but, 3 of me, So I'm eating like 240 a day, so he's eating 3 times that. But it's all relative, yeah. And always, like I'm saying, like I'm not trying to tell anyone in this room exactly what to do. This has been my experiments, and these are things that we have to experiment with. And when we hear people, because even if you're not going to train heavy squats and deadlifts, but you're going to come across at the VSOP table, you're going to come across somebody who says, yeah, this is my boyfriend, and he's totally skeptical about this, and he doesn't think it's possible. But if we know how to help that person, that could actually, if he becomes a good athlete, could be a very influential person. So, I mean, the implications of knowing how to talk about nutrition and not just tell people to eat whole foods, plant-based, rice and beans, whatever, is going to help the animals. Does that answer? Okay, good. Yes?
First of all, I wanted to say the presentation was really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed it. And then secondly, I wanted to ask, so some of my patients who are wanting to do this and are vegan, I sometimes tell them to use no-meat athlete supplement called complement. Is that something you recommend?
Well, you got to understand, no-meat athlete is he's a triathlete. He's going to have a different perspective on it than me.
But I mean, in terms of supplements, that one capsule has B12, vitamin.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm not familiar with his line. I know that it exists, but I don't know the contents of it.
Vegan DHA, EPA. So 5 of the things that
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That sounds great. I bet it's a little pricey, but worth it.
Yeah, because you're not buying separate ones.
Yeah.
One capsule a day. And also, Deva Vegan DHA, EPA is like 90 tablets for $20.
The Diva brand? Yeah, actually that's what I have in my backpack right out there. Yeah, it's a good deal. Yeah, thank you.
So I have one add-on comment. I actually met Dr. Campbell the last year maybe. Anyway, so yeah, I asked him the same thing, high protein, do you have any comments and for sports? And he told me I'm not opposed to athletes under high demands eating a lot of protein. He's opposed to protein powder. But he's not necessarily opposed to the idea of like a high protein diet. So we talked about making that work. And so if you're gonna eat, like I eat a lot of tofu, the high protein tofu, because I like that more than some of the other things.
Yeah. The more firm, the better it is.
If you want it to be like mental stuff and you're not looking at macros and stuff, like
Well, you're not the only one. So she's saying that she asked Dr. Campbell about high protein diets for what purpose? Just weight training, sports. Yeah, and I know other people who have asked him about it in private, and in private, he's like, yeah. I mean, I guess you got to do that. But that's not his shtick, and that's not his own. And that's not because generally the athletes aren't the people he's talking to. They're the people in distress who are like facing death, and people who need to turn their lives around.
So he was against the idea of like overly processed like protein powder, which
Yeah.
is a supplement. If you want to plan to eat all that food, like you said, there is a way to make that all food.
Yeah,
And
it's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work.
It's a lot of chewing.
It is like a ton of work. You want to eat all the food. But it was nice to like meet him and have that like brain.
Yeah, well, he's obviously a very smart guy, and when you got to break it down and get real, he can do that. But if you're gonna trust somebody on lifting advice, I wouldn't ask him. I mean, put him and all the other doctors together, I'll deadlift all of them at the same time. And it speaks to the practicality that we need to have if we're going to go for some kind of big transformational goal. It's not going to go by what's generally accepted as a health practice. This isn't about health. It's whatever you got to do to get that goal. I would say do it. As long as you're not. I mean, there are some vegans out there doing steroids now, and in the bodybuilding world, I mean that's like kind of a prerequisite to hold any kind of title, unfortunately. So if vegans are going to do it, I'd say, well, better than the meat, but there's a lot that can be achieved without that. And there's a lot of vegan athletes out there proving it, and that's why I recommend looking up the Plant Milk website. We got time for any more? One more if anyone wants to get a question. I know somebody's got one. Yeah?
Serious question now.
Okay.
Where would you recommend to start off weightlifting?
Oh, good question. Well, what would your goal be?
Get muscle.
To gain muscle? I would say, the interesting thing about bodybuilders, I talked about the difference in physique and performance between bodybuilders and powerlifters, but a lot of bodybuilders, they initially have the same goal as a powerlifter, which is just to get more muscle on the frame. And I say a beginner power, the biggest period of beginner gains that I experienced was when I tried a basic beginner's powerlifting program. Because a lot of bodybuilders were one of those too. So whether in the long term it's going to be more about aesthetic goals or strength goals, a lot of bodybuilders in the off season live more like a powerlifter, and they do those compound lifts. And those are the things that are going to stimulate the most muscle growth, stimulate your hormones to achieve whatever goal it is you want in the long run. But I found that reducing my cardio and upping my weight training, and then also not doing too high of reps, because you could lift a paper clip 1,000 times, it's not going to make anything grow on you. Get to where you're working in the 5 to 8 rep range for squats, bench, deadlifts, things like that, and then do your assistance work after that. That can be higher rep. But the great thing about powerlifting is it teaches you a lot of principles, getting to know cues in your body and how to do exercises properly.
Would you recommend CrossFit or no?
I think learn basic lifts first and do them with the correct form. CrossFit can often emphasize more repetition and speed and compromise the quality of each repetition. Learn good form first, and a basic powerlifting program will teach you that, and you can apply that to anything you go into next.
Do 5 minutes of cardio before workout to get your heart rate up?
Nah. No, I honestly think practice the movements that you're about to get. They're going to be your primary exercises for the day. Those movements in a bodyweight form, basically like an active stretch. Active stretching for a couple minutes, then hit those just with a bar, no added weight, maybe body weight if you want, just to activate the muscle groups and then get to the workout. When it comes to working up to the kind of weight you're dealing with in the 5 to 8 rep range, which is actually getting kind of heavy, you need to get that muscle memory dialed in. And so that when you do those heavier sets and those heavier reps, you're doing them correctly. And you know the cues in your body to do them, and that's going to stimulate muscle growth in the places you want it. So hopefully that helps. The first program I ever ran that really helped me and I saw the difference was called 5x5. So look up powerlifting 5x5 program. You'll find a lot of options. The one I did was called Mad Cal's 5x5. And most people who get into powerlifting run that one first because it does work. Works for bodybuilders too.
Is that a 1 or like a 0.65 for like protein? That little list that you showed us? That's like 1 to body fat.
Yeah. Oh, you mean if you want to build muscle, I would say go for one gram per pound of body weight at least. Plus, factor in that 10 to 16% for fiber as a meat. So it's, for me, I'm overshooting. I'm trying to get close to 1.5. But when people are worried about kidney function and things like that, it should go without saying, and I should have said this earlier, you should always be drinking water. Like, duh. Not sugary things, not soda, not sugary juices, water. Just drink water all the time. And when you make your shakes, you don't necessarily need to make them with milk. That might be some added sugars or carbohydrates that you don't need in your diet. Get a protein powder. There's many of them that mix well with water. So just water all the time. And keep tabs on your piss. If it starts to smell really bad and look bad, you got a problem. But it's I haven't experienced those things eating even as much protein as I do. Well, thank you all very much. Big shout out to Vegan Society Peace for creating these forums and these get-togethers. Keeping it going in Houston, because I remember when I met you, we didn't have anything in Houston going on. There was like 5 of us.
We didn't. Actually, Daniel's mother and I, we met at a PETA conference in Houston,
Yeah.
15 years ago it must have been.
Yeah. What's funny is I was on tour with my band, and I was just a vegetarian, but I toured Mexico for a week, and I was the only vegetarian in the band at the time. So the catering was on, oh, you're vegetarian? Well, here's something with cheese. So I ate cheese every day, and I came home constipated. and my mom and my girlfriend at the time had gone to see Ingrid speak.
Okay.
And they were swayed. They were like, we're done being vegetarian, it's time to be vegan. And I was like, yep, I can't poop, I'm ready to be vegan too.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. And hopefully we'll have you on our VegFest Houston athlete panel again this year.